One thing I want to quick say about the decompression stance, which I put in the link below. So that playlist there has a couple of foundation training videos, a couple of our own videos on the Rim Rock Wellness Center, so you can check those out on the decompression stance. So this is why the decompression stance is important, and we'll talk about the shoulder first. So with the shoulder, a lot of people, why we get tightness, kind of pinching in a rhomboid area, is we, instead of being stiff, decompressing, we pinch the shoulder blades back. So it takes a rhomboid and it pinches it, closes it down, and that creates those little spasms you get there, and why we're always wanting to get some movement. Hi, Dr. Shayla. In those thoracic areas, or if somebody has no curvature there, and they're also going to have a lot of, swelling here, irritation in the neck from robbing motion from the spine to contract those rhomboids. A lot of times the shoulder is still internally rotated. I'm good. Okay, you can hear me. Wife came out, so I wasn't sure. Making sure she can hear me. So to fix that, we decompress and we're lengthening the spine. We're stiffening it, activating those transversal spinalis muscles. So then when I externally rotate, it's just a little bit, right? I'm only getting a little bit of motion so that I'm not caving that spine in. So the spine's here, pretend my body is the spine. It's not going, oh, okay, whatever you want, rhomboids, just do what you will. It's being like, no, I'm gonna stay here, I'm gonna stay strong, I'm gonna stay in this lengthened state. I'm not going to warp, because a lot of times what we're finding, chiropractic wise, we're trying to adjust that thoracic area, is just so jammed down. This way. So you're actually lifting up, you're holding it there, and that's great for a lot of exercises you're doing. So I'm going to back up a little bit so you can kick these flip-flops off, show you what happens with the hips, because it's the same idea, almost reversed. Because a lot of us, especially those athletes, bikers, bicyclers, not actual bikers, tucking the pelvis first is not so great, because it actually pushes my hips forward. We change that angle. And that's not so much what we want, because we want the shoulder stacked with the hip, and it's robbing motion from the spine. Great glute activation, but we want to activate the glutes last. So I know I don't talk about pelvic tilt a lot, because what's great about the decompression stance is it's for everybody. Foundation training is for everyone. It's where you should be able to start, because a lot of these exercises we need to correct pelvic tilt aren't addressed because we have to teach the decompression stance first to make those exercises actually work. So same thing, decompressing, I'm engaging my hip flexors now, and you can see that I'm probably a little anterior tilted. So then you activate those glutes at the end. That actually goes well with the occiput. People are always jammed up here. There's a lot, Dr. Shayla is always talking about, the suboccipital, the loved brother to the sacrum. Those two actually go together. Those are the last little bit. If you want to add that on the end of the decompression stance, that's usually for everyone. Some people are already so, that's why I don't have it in the decompression stance, because some people are already so posterior pelvic tilt glute activated that I'm trying to get you to shut that off a little bit. But for me, I like to add it in because I know I got that duck butt, right? It likes to stick out. And that's too much curve in the spine. So that last little bit really helps that L4, L5 area, that sacrum. And that's what you're gonna see through these routines. So the first one is kind of a strict forward fold. Let's see if that should be a good angle there. So strict meaning decompression stance. This is the measuring stick hands, by the way. Watch the videos, you'll get that. So the chest comes up, shoulders drop, and I kind of take this hip hugger position, which just opens up my shoulders and reminds me to squeeze my inner thighs. So everything is with the breathing here. So is when you're exhaling on the exertion, which is different, because people think deadlift, they're thinking, oh, I'm gonna exhale there. It's kind of the opposite with foundation, because the contraction, when I'm using my hip flexors here to engage, to pull me down, that's when I'm exhaling. Actually, I had a nice little pop in my hip there. It's telling me I need this more than you guys. And then I inhale on the way up. And this is just a warm up, because this routine has a lot to do with the hamstrings. So we're doing 7 of those, and I'm not gonna run through everything now, I'll do that later. And on the last one, we stop as far as we can get on the hamstring. So I'm not bending from the spine, and then I do 3 deeper breaths to get lower. So it's exhale, almost to the knees, get that shakiness. Exhale, really the spine is fighting a lot here. I can feel my legs shaking, I don't know if you can see them. And then one final breath, and I'm not even giving 100% here. So the idea is not to warp our spine and tuck our pelvis to get down to the ground. We'll do something like that later. So you should feel that tension in the hamstrings. it's spinal activation with the hip flexor. So we're not going yoga on it. We're not just warping from the spine to get down there, just to show you that I can if I wanted to. I'm not that restricted. So the next one is good for rotational imbalances because we all have that in our pelvis. So starting pretty, let me get there for you. Pretty narrow, split stance. Now what's different about this is we're pushing off the back toe, and I'm not letting that knee bend. You know, it's like we push, everyone goes forward. It's almost I'm pushing back with my spine as my hips push forward. And then at the very end, you squeeze that glute. It actually makes me a little taller, and I get a little stretch on the back leg and that hip flexor. And then what we're doing is we're just tracing. Elbows high here. Overhead, again, we're doing 7, really kind of light, just to warm up your spine. And you're breathing again, exhaling on the exertion, which is more there. That should be the toughest part. So on your 7th one, again, you're holding. This is what we call the sphere of tension. You're holding that. And as I take my breaths, I'm fighting to get a little bit more extended, and also I'm fighting to get a little more length through those 3. So 3 breaths again, like that. And then we'll switch it up, give you another angle. So we're pushing off the back toe, measuring stick hands. We get the engagement here first, then it's abs with the glutes. And right there, now I can see where I'm getting that stretch, squeezing in there. And tracing, we're not raising the shoulders to trace. It's as the elbows come up, the shoulders actually drive down, and you'll feel that upper trap stretch as you go overhead here. So same idea. And then we walk you through this one. So that was bad. Let me try that again. So I'm exhaling a little deeper. Exhaling, not rushing. Shakes right there. That's the toughest part, where it's really shaky. You can really feel these guys fighting a lot through there. So repetition 7 times. You're holding the 7th again, same as with the first one. This one's a little funny. Wider, and you can point your toes out a little bit. Allow a little external rotation, but not too much. This one's like the narrow founder we've done before with the lift, but just wider stance. Always decompress, get yourself lengthened. It's harder to squeeze your glutes here, but give it the best shot. Even if you don't feel any movement, it's just activating the glutes that matters. I had a patient up against the wall today. You know, wall is a good way to learn the decompression exercise. All right. Because she tucked. When she tucked, she shrunk. So I'm like, activate the glutes last. She's like, I don't feel any movement. It's okay. Pushing against the wall, you're gonna get stronger. And that's enough to take tension off. So this one we're hooking, pulling my shoulders down, which is kind of like squeezing my inner thighs. Same thing, popping the chest. And as I push my hips back, I'm raising, coming up higher. And there's 3 breaths. So it's breath 1, breath 2, 3rd exhale, you're at the shaky world there. So then you're pushing off, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm pushing off my left heel, and that kind of, as I internally rotate, you're more adductor when you're pushing off that heel. A little bit of hip flexor, but it just twists me a little bit. And we're gonna do another exercise that's like this. So then when I go up 1, breath 2, breath 3, I'm challenging one side of my spinal muscles over the other, stretching those erectors. Good. And then I'm pushing off the other side. Same thing. We're doing this 7 times. And then for the final one, after you've done 7, you should end up in the middle on 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Take it back to the middle. You're just gonna hold it a little bit longer. So 1, 2, 3, deepening the hip hinge with each one. 4, 5, and add a 6th for fun, right? You could go more if you want, but that's when it really gets tough, is when you get really deep. So you're kind of warming your body up to that last hold, and that's where most of the work is done, I feel, is that final position where you're holding, your spine is really fighting, it wants to bend to help you raise the arms, but you're not letting it. That's the trick there. So These all kind of mirror each other. So now we're going a little wider, that split stance, almost into what we call the woodpecker position now. Same thing, I'm pushing off, but now I'm coming out over front like that, squeezing. Don't let your head come back. We're engaging at the hips, pulling ourselves a little higher. And you bring it up eye level. So again, it's 7 repetitions. If you haven't noticed, 7 is the magical number here. Exhale, that's 1, 2. So as you're pushing your weight back, you'll notice that back toe is not caving in. It's pushing off. It has to resist your whole posterior chain, your whole spine coming back. It's got to fight against that. And guess what? On the 7th one, you're doing 3 breaths. 1, 2, ooh, fight for balance. 3. You should really feel the balance challenging. You know, if you're not pushing that hard, you won't get there. Flip it up, flip it over, whatever, flip the other side. Think about the 3 points of contact when you're doing this too. The front foot should have those 3 points of contact, the balls of the feet, all 3 arches of the foot activating. Looking up, woodpecker position, a little bit over eye level. So you're not going for a big distance here, it's just challenging that spine. Again, time it with your breathing. Do what I say, not what I do. And this is different than some foundation training because it's got more of a cardio aspect to it, but it's also got their sustained holds at the end too. Good. And you can hold that last one as long as you want. Now this one's tricky, and I hate this one, but it's fun. So those 2, 7 times, 3 breaths on the last one. This one you're just doing 7 repetitions here, going down. Try not to knock my mic. All the way down. You're gonna have to bend a little bit at the spine here, but try not to do too much. Trying to line up my fingers with my toes. So what I'm doing here is I'm dropping into a flat foot squat, keeping those heels down. I'm actually pulling up on my toes. See how I pop my chest just a little bit? Deepen in. That's when you're really gonna open up those hips. Not being just here where you're caved in, trying to drive everything back. You'll even feel that a lot in your neck. Do just 1 breath there, then you flip into this position. Almost like you're about to do a deadlift, just a little wider. You're pushing your toes now into the ground. So you'll feel the weight in the hamstrings. Same thing, you're driving your head back up. And if these are too hard to get to, which is just a strict forward fold, get yourself down about here. So you're pressing up in this position, same idea, you're popping the chest, and then you can just hinge in for that one. So take a breath here. And this will still help you eventually be able to get down. You can go as low as you want, so you can kind of inch your way. So, okay, I can get about here now. Same thing, you're pressing up and then doing that lift again here. And that should help you get down. Eventually be able to get down here. You can drop a little deeper and you can widen your stance or narrow it. Usually the more narrow for me, like if I'm there, that's gonna be tougher. Let's see if I can do that. I could definitely get deeper here. That's actually easier. I lied. And then we'll finish with kind of a corkscrew from the hip. So the split stance, we're actually doing 3 times. There's just 3 different slight variations. This one, you don't have to be so wide. That second one, I really wanted you to test your, almost like a warrior 1 kind of, stacked. So here, a little more wider than the narrow. Here, very similar, right? But now I'm just turning, not from my spine, it's all actually from my hips, so that's probably a bad angle. Let me see if I can get you there. Here, and I'm pushing off that inner thigh squeeze, adductor. And that really challenges the other hip too. So exhale. And guess what? 7 times. I try to make the numbers simple so you don't have to think about it. And then on the last one, you hold, and then you bring it overhead. And you could do that in one big exhale. And take a couple breaths at the top. 3 is the magic number. For me, it's more about focusing on the breath, not so much the number. Because then if you're all thinking about the number, you're thinking 1, 2, and you're not thinking about getting that decompression breath. In these positions is the hardest thing to do, and that's the hardest thing to learn. I always show the other side, just in case we didn't get that angle right. Maybe right from here on the front. I already did that way. It's this way. There we go. So stacking, measuring stick hands, tightening those hip flexors, and you're pushing off your back toe to really put your weight over your hip. And then a lot of the back toe, but a lot of the weight is on that front heel. So you shouldn't feel it in the toes too much. It should be the heel, the balls of your feet, creating that good transverse arch grab, outside the arch, lateral arch, medial arch, all 3 working together to push you. You're actually pushing yourself up with your arch, so it's going to strengthen your arches there. Hooking yourself up, keeping the chest broad, so I'm not here, right? I'm not extending my head, I'm lifting everything. And then we're just rotating, turning that hip in. You see that? So I'm not swiveling from my lumbar spine. I'm not doing that. It says not good. We already motioned from our lower lumbar spine way too much. So from the hip, good. And you'll notice in these stances, split stance, you generally are twisted out to one side because you have more balance when you're like this. So just remember that. One little correction for that is to actually do this exercise. First go here, hold that hip contraction, then come back to the center. And that's actually going to level you out. So you're not like, am I turned or am I not turned? So maybe if you can see it, let me if I angle that way. See, I'm kind of a little turned out. But if I just squeeze the inner thigh, get myself on my back toe, I'm on an uncomfortable place in this board. It's always better in the grass. Going over top, almost like a barbell pull now. Just a little bit at that angle, you're keeping that rotation. So the hips are kind of staying forward. It's just your body's a little twisted. But again, it's from the hip, not twisting from the spine. And that's the end of the workout. Pretty simple. I'm not going to run through it again because I'm actually pretty tired. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you survived that whole video, cheers. And I'll try to put the full length routine with nice even flow. I just don't think I can get through right now because I'm tired. Just that little bit, right? Whatever this video was, 10 minutes. It's the talking that gets me. So that routine is called Gimel. If you want to look for it, it probably won't be on the Rimrock YouTube page, but if you go to Greater Exodus Vitality Restoration, I'll have it up there eventually. And I like to put in pictures of my back, not because I'm vain. It's because I'm always like, look at these back muscles. Not because these are so like big, strong muscles. It's because look at all this compression that's happening all day long. Is what I'm trying to show you. When you can see those upper trap muscles, those erectors, because those are the muscles that are really caving down your spine all day long. Even if you might look good, like someone's like, oh, you got great posture, it's not necessarily good for your spine. And that's the whole idea behind these exercises. It's relearning how to stand right. Because if you can be successful in the little things, just walking and standing and sitting and lifting, the little tiny motions, that's going to make the big change in the long run, because it's micro trauma that gets most of us, right? Because you come in, I didn't do anything, doc, I slept funny. Sleeping funny shouldn't sprain your back. It's not how it's supposed to work. You should have a little more stability than that. Or just bending over. You know, we want to make our movements work for us, build us up, make us stronger. And doing this stuff helps train you for real life. That's all I gotta say about that.